All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules to be a part of this year's How to Host an In-Person Food Waste Prevention Week event webinar. This webinar is being put on by the Tennessee Department of Environment and Conservation in collaboration with the Network for Sustainable Solutions, Rockit Science Agency, and the Food Waste Prevention Week. My name is Caleb Powell, and I'm an environmental scientist for the Office of Sustainable Practices at TDEC. And I'm going to be hosting the webinar today for our wonderful speakers. So if you have any questions, you're having issues with audio or seeing the presentation, I'm going to be the person that helps out with that. Also, Joelle sent a chat in the chat box, so over on your right-hand screen you should see the chat box. I'm sending a chat there right now if you didn't already get Joelle's. Basically, everyone's muted upon entry to reduce the amount of background noise, so we still want, I think there's a big benefit of having a live webinar to be able to get your questions answered, or if you have comments to add to help with the discussion. So please feel free to use that chat box as much as you would like. And then there is a drop down right that says send to, so if you just can make sure that the word all or host is in that one of the selections that you choose from that drop down. That way that I'll be able to see those questions and get those either comments talked about or the questions answered by our speakers. So other than that, I'm going to pass it on over to the woman in charge, Joelle. Joelle is going to be running the webinar today, but like I said, if you have any issues at all, make sure to send me a chat in the chat box. I can help you out.
Well, hey everybody, thank you so much for joining. Good afternoon, and I guess good morning to some of our folks on the West Coast. Caleb, if you haven't already started the record, if you could do so now, that would be wonderful, though I'm sure you've already done that. I'm very pleased to be with you today. My name is Joelle Ciriacy from the Tennessee Department of Environment and Conservation. And with TDEC, as we call it, I help lead the Get Food Smart Tennessee program, and that is our program to reduce food waste in the state. And we are very pleased to partner with Food Waste Prevention Week every year, and we're really excited to tell you about some events that we do in our state, and we're very excited to hear from our other presenters as well. So today we're being joined by Madeline Roberson from the Network for Sustainable Solutions, who did an excellent job hosting and planning an event in Nashville, Tennessee. We are also joined today by Brad Bongiovanni and Erin Franco of the Rockit Science Ad Agency that are going to tell us a little bit about their great work and their advice on how to market your in-person events. As Caleb said, the webinar is being recorded, so a link to the recording will be posted after the webinar. We'll also share the slides. And if you have any questions, we love your questions. So please type those questions in the chat and we'll do our best to get to as many, if not all, at the end. Okay, so if you're on this webinar, there's a chance that you already know what Food Waste Prevention Week is, but in case you're not 100% sure, Food Waste Prevention Week is a time to raise awareness about the problem of food waste in our nation and worldwide, and also to raise awareness and to celebrate ways that we can reduce and prevent food waste. So a large portion of that is through social media. We encourage partners of all sorts of different persuasions to share on social media about food waste, and we have social media calendars that partners can use to schedule posts about food waste during Food Waste Prevention Week. There's also opportunities for engagement of athletic teams, schools, universities, businesses, governments, and beyond. And then this kind of third pillar is in-person events, which is something that we've specialized a lot in Tennessee, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. And I just want to make a note here that Food Waste Prevention Week this upcoming year, that's 2025, is April 7th to 13th, 2025. So last year, the Tennessee Department for Environment and Conservation partnered with Food Waste Prevention Week to create these guides, the Food Waste Awareness and Education Event Guide, and they're so beautiful because Rockit made them beautiful for us. They're available in English and Spanish, so if you go on Food Waste Prevention Week's website, you can download these in both of those languages, and I'm going to show you where to get to them right now. I believe that the website might be getting a little bit of a facelift soon, but it should still be available. So if you visit www.foodwastepreventionweek.com, you can navigate to the partner portal on that top banner. And then if you scroll down on the second line, there's a little block here that says how to host an in-person event, and you can download that in English or Spanish. So these guides cover all sorts of different considerations for planning an in-person event. One of those is identifying your objectives and your target audience for the event, and that influences your description of the event as well as the layout in the physical space. Then you want to make some considerations and plans for having a green event or a low waste or no waste event. You also need to consider if your event is planned on being outside, what you will do in the case of inclement weather. Will you cancel? Can you move inside? How will you communicate those plans with your partners that are planning to be at the event? Some considerations for budget, and then these last three are some of my favorite parts. The venue vet checklist I'm going to go into in a little bit more detail in a moment is very helpful and very relevant right now because this is about the time that a lot of our event planners in Tennessee are kind of going through this right now and may have already started, maybe doing it a little bit later. And then there are some specific considerations for bread to tap events, and those are events where our partners work with a brewery. Sometimes that's local farmers or bakers provide kind of their seconds or their stale bread, things like that, to make a special beer, and that raises awareness on upcycling food. It's a fun way to celebrate Food Waste Prevention Week, and then we host an event surrounding that upcycled beer. And then finally, advertising. Rockit is going to go into a little more detail later on. But in terms of that venue vet checklist, since that's so relevant to this particular time of year, some things to consider are the capacity of the space. So what's the capacity of the indoor and outdoor space? If there's outdoor space, is there electricity outside? Do your partners that might be tabling need electricity outside? Things like musicians that you might want to have, or trivia, things like that. What's the parking capacity at this venue? How accessible is the venue? Is it ADA compliant? That's something that's really important. We want all folks to be able to learn about food waste prevention, so we love ADA compliance. What is the location of the venue? Does it get foot traffic? We've learned in Tennessee that foot traffic or encountering people in locations where they tend to already go. So somebody that goes to a brewery after their kid's soccer game every Saturday, you're encountering a different group of people than maybe you normally would. You're not just preaching to the choir, you're encountering people where they're at, which is very valuable to us. Does the venue provide food if you want food? Is there space for a food truck? And does the venue allow outside food? And for those events that may not be held in a specific venue per se, like a restaurant or a brewery, things like that, check with local permitting because things like parks, pavilions, things like that, they may require some permit, some simple permit to use the space. And just a note here before I toss it over to our next presenter, there are all sorts of fun opportunities to partner with Food Waste Prevention Week, whether or not you want to host an in-person event. So if you're feeling really inspired, please check out the opportunity to partner with us. So visit www.foodwastepreventionweek.com to learn how to do that. There's a very short little Google form to fill out, and then you're a partner. Even if it's just you, it's just your family, you can still be a partner. And if you feel really inspired and you want to host an in-person event, once you have those details, please tell us about your event by filling out information about your event on our events page of foodwastepreventionweek.com, because that allows us to champion your event and advertise our event on the website so that anyone anywhere can find their way to your event and learn more about Food Waste Prevention Week. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Madeline, if you'd like to come off mute and tell us about your awesome work here in Nashville.
Whoa, hello everyone. My name's Madeline. Do we have my slides ready?
Sorry, can you see them?
I cannot.
Caleb, can you see my slides?
Yeah, it's on the mission right now, and I see Madeline's picture.
Yes. Let's see.
Oh, okay. It's making me click on myself. Interesting. Okay. Oh. Hello, everyone. Sorry. I'm Madeline. I'm the Director of Programs and Engagement at Network for Sustainable Solutions. We're a Tennessee nonprofit working to enrich people and planet by connecting individuals, organizations, communities, and more to each other to create lasting sustainable change. And we've been working on Food Waste Prevention Week for 3 years now. This was the 3rd year we've done it. And this year we kind of took the reins and in terms of planning and organizing the event, and I'm excited to share with you all kind of what we did and some ideas that will hopefully inspire you in your events. Okay, if we could go to, I still can't see what you're on, but the picture with the first slide with pictures of mine.
Got it. Sorry, Madeline.
It's okay. Okay, so when we were going through venues, we had started to look at some breweries that were on the Sustainable Spirits program, which is something that I don't know if, Joelle, you've talked about, but would encourage everyone to go look at it. It's essentially breweries that participate in some varying levels of sustainable practices to ensure that their brews are made responsibly, sourced responsibly, and taking pretty much everything into consideration in terms of the environment in their operations processes. And if you are a brewery or know someone who owns one, you can apply to be on the Sustainable Spirits program, or even like winery, distillery, any type of spirit can be part of that program. So we were looking at some venues that were part of that program to help bring awareness to the program, but also to just kind of stay in line with our values and what we wanted for the event and for this this work in general. So we had originally planned to have our event at East Nashville Beer Works, which is part of the program. And unfortunately, as it goes with event planning, we had a little hiccup and they were no longer able to host us only 2 weeks before our event. So we had to quick pivot, and luckily I knew someone who works at Yazoo Brewing, which is up in Madison, still in Nashville, but kind of in the northeast corner of Nashville. And luckily they have an absolutely gorgeous space, and they were super down to earth and very willing to work with us. So I have some pictures here of the space that we were able to utilize at Yazoo, and luckily we got a gorgeous day. It was perfect weather, really nice and sunny. But yeah, like Joelle said, we did have a backup plan for rain that we were going to move into their actual, their building. But luckily we didn't have to, and it worked out really well. So this was the space. We had a little sign made up. I am not a graphic designer by any means, but I know how to use Canva, and so I made a little graphic for the event I think it would be remiss if we didn't talk about the marketing that went into the event before it even happened. So I just want to touch on that a little bit, and I know that the other two presenters are going to talk about that as well, but I'll just say what we did. So I had flyers made. I went around to different local businesses in Nashville and hung them on the community boards. I put the event on local news calendars, so places like the Nashville Scene, Tennessean, all of those major publications have event calendars. And usually you can go on their website and register your event for free. I think that they also have paid ad options to do that, but we didn't do that because we were working with a smaller budget. But we did that, and then I also ran some Facebook and Instagram or meta ads as well to try and get people to come from social media, because I thought about how I find out about events, and usually it's from social media, an ad, or from a flyer. So that's kind of how we did our marketing for the event. You can move to the next slide. Okay, and then for the actual event, I thought it would be a fun idea to bring in several local nonprofits to and just educational, informational organizations that relate to food waste or are tangential to that work, to come and share about their efforts to reduce food waste, what they do, and I kind of had the system set up as people would come in and they would sign in and they would walk through, they would walk through the life cycle of the food system. So I'll kind of explain that in a little bit, but some of the organizations we had were Old School Farm. They're a local farm that works to provide food for people who are not able to access food, or people who are low income, low access. So all of the food that they grow on their farm gets donated to different organizations, one of them being an organization called The Store in Nashville, which is a free community store where folks who are low income, low access can go and get the local produce and good quality food that they need to stay healthy and stay alive. So Old School Farm is great. They also had a series going on called Preservation Education, where they guide folks through different ways that you can preserve food and keep it out of the landfill. They had a series on canning tomato sauce. They had a series on making marshmallows with marshmallow root, making dried floral wreaths with flowers, tie-dyeing with indigo, just all kinds of really cool things like that, and ways to keep food out of the landfill, and just ways to use food in a different way that you might not have thought of before. So they're a really great organization that we had come. And then, of course, we had TDEC come. There's Joelle and Chris. And then our booth was there as well. And we had, actually, I'm going to get into this later, but that was our booth. You can go to the next slide. Some more organizations that we had were the Tennessee Association of Farmers Markets. Come share about the initiatives that they're working on to prevent food waste at the farmers market level, and they handed out some kind of like grocery planning at the farmers market. So like they had a list of all the things that you can get at the farmers market, and so you can kind of use that alongside with, you know, whatever grocery store you shop at to come up with your grocery list. And then we had Feedback Nashville come and share about their initiatives. They're an initiative out of the mother organization called the Nashville Food Project, which does really excellent work in food waste. They make something like several thousand meals a week, and using recovered food from grocery stores and other places that would have otherwise just thrown the food away. They take that food and they make it into meals for the community who needs them. So they were talking about their Feedback Nashville initiative, which is an initiative to try and change the landscape of the food system in Nashville, reduce food waste, make it more sustainable in general, and kind of hyper-localize the food system here. So they were great. And then we had Compost Nashville, of course, doing excellent work to reduce food waste and divert it out of the landfill. They had some fun activities for the kids, as you can see in this photo here, just kind of doing sorting exercises on what goes into the compost, what doesn't, what gets recycled, and just educating people on what can be composted. And they did also a raffle to give away a free month of composting, which was exciting. Can move on to the next slide. For some more experiential parts of the event, we had one of my personal friends, actually, who works with Old School Farm, Nico, and her company, Nico's Wild Kitchen. She does a lot of really awesome ferments and just different things with food, and she did a couple demonstrations for our guests to show them how to preserve food longer. She did a pickling demonstration, and she did a canning demonstration, and then she has some different things that she makes with her professional chef business that she was selling, which was incredible. And then we had Zero Waste Nashville, which is the hub of Nashville's waste services. They were showing us why it's important to compost, the difference between something going into the landfill versus something being composted and the impact on the environment. And they had another really great fun thing for kids and adults, enjoyed it as well, to do, where they led an activity of what can be composted, what can be recycled, similar to Compost Nashville, but a little different. And then to kind of bring all of these organizations together, we can go to the next slide. I know it'll be hard to read, but I'm sure everyone can grab a copy of this deck and you can zoom in at your leisure later. I had an idea to engage both kids and adults a little bit further and take the education from this event kind of another level further, to create these little food waste passports that are partly educational, partly interactive. So the first photo here is a photo of the cover of it. So I had one specifically designed for kids, which would be the one on the right, and then ones for adults. I had several different colorways, I guess you could say, of the kids' ones. We had a bunch of different superheroes, which was kind of the theme, like be a food waste hero was kind of the theme for the passports. So I went with the superhero theme. And then I had a little bit of a education on why food waste is important, how does it happen, taking people through the life cycle of food from growth to end of life. And then on the How Can We Stop It page, which is the very rightmost image on the top level, that is where everyone would get a stamp at each booth. So each booth from all of the organizations and nonprofits I just told you about that were at the event had a stamp for everyone to go to that booth and grab a stamp. So the way we had it set up was when you would register at our table, you would grab a passport, and you would go around and fill up your passport at each booth. And then once you filled out your passport, there was a little activity at the end that we had people write down how they were planning on implementing something that they learned at the event to help fight food waste. And then they would tear that sheet off and hand it to us, and they would be entered to win one of the prizes that TDEC so graciously donated to us. There was some fun Tennessee swag shirts and backpacks and all different kinds of things. Nico donated a couple of her ferments, so that was really fun, and it was a way to kind of incentivize people to be engaged at the event. And I think it went over really well. We got a lot of good feedback. And then with the tearaway card that they had, we actually mailed those back to everyone as kind of a reminder of here's what you promised, how are you doing, kind of thing. So there was a follow-through after the event, and it wasn't just thanks for learning about food waste, now go home and resume life as normal. It was kind of a little gentle encouragement to stay engaged with food waste, stay curious about how you can do better, and yeah, we thought that was a really fun way to get people engaged. You can go to the next slide here. And then finally, I had an idea to make a little food waste recipe booklet. So we had a couple different recipes, some carrot top pesto, some veggie scrap broth, strawberry top vinaigrette, and then a non-edible, non-toxic citrus peel kitchen cleaner. So that was just a fun little extra freebie that we gave people to kind of get their wheels turning about how they can reduce food waste at home in really meaningful ways with very commonly used produce items, instead of, composting it, being able to utilize that extra food waste to give it a second life. So that was a fun little add too. And then we can go to the last slide here. Finally, it was very important to us to not only educate people about food waste, but to also practice what we were preaching. So we had Compost Nashville graciously donated 2 huge compost bins that we had them about halfway filled at the end of the day, which was exciting. So we kept a lot of food and waste out of the landfill. Yazoo Brewing had a full restaurant, so even people that weren't actually there for the event were coming over and composting their compostable plates and food and packaging, and so that was an extra fun benefit as well of having those compost bins be there. And then we also had a little volunteer activity to engage people directly with food waste work. We asked Society of St. Andrew, which is a gleaning organization, so they go out into farms and fields and they rope through the fields and they make sure that all of the produce has been taken out of the field, where it otherwise would just be sitting there to rot, which nobody wants. Farmers work really hard and we want to make sure that all of their produce is put to good use. So we had them come bring a load of sweet potatoes that were gleaned from a local farm, and we had some volunteers that were there for the event, and even people who weren't there for the event come and help bag them up so that they can be distributed to people who are hungry. So that was a fun little interactive way to engage people directly with food waste work and showcase already great work that's happening and get people talking about how they can be more of a supporter in food waste and support local organizations that are working hard to prevent it. So that was, I think, everything that I wanted to talk about with the event, but I'm happy to take any questions if we're doing that.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Madeline. We'll take questions at the end if that's all right.
Yeah, that's great.
What a wonderful thing to hear about. Thank you so much for sharing. And
Yeah.
I'll switch to our next slide, and we're going to be hearing from Brad and Erin. Thank you, guys.
Great. Hi, everyone. I am Brad from Rocket Science. We have some new things to share with you today. If you were on the call last year, you may see some additional items from that presentation, but we thought it was still relevant. So we're going to jump right in, and we're going to talk about in-person events, really around content, things like asset gathering, and how to use that, how to prep for it before, use it during the event, and then what you do with it afterwards. So if we'll go to the next slide, well, where do we start? I always say in our business, we're in the creative industry, the worst thing you could give a creative is a blank white sheet of paper and say, okay, start, right? Because you're looking at it, you don't know where to start, reference. So a blank white canvas is a creative killer, as we say. So where do we start? We'll go to the next slide. We have to start thinking about, these in-person events. As we say here, they could be a gold mine. So how do we prepare? Where do we find that gold or those juicy nuggets of information that we want to highlight and feature? So we'll go to the next slide. And it was really great to see in the previous presentation how invitations were sent out. You can see here, if you build it, they will come, or will they, right? If no one knows about the event, or if you are just doing it organically, it's a little more difficult to get folks to that event. So obviously we recommend building some type of an invite that can be visual. This one was for a coastal coastal restoration project, of all things, where we had a boil, so boil for the bayou here on the South Louisiana coast. We coupled that with some direct mail, so we got this to different mailing houses and sent them out to different zip codes. Obviously, we had direct email, post on social, and community boards. So it was great to hear how the previous event was promoted, doing almost the exact same thing. So fantastic. So we always put together a content plan and approach ahead of any event. And one thing we do is we do a location scout. Obviously, if you are looking at an event, you wanted that checklist that the folks earlier were talking about: capacity, parking, ADA, accessibility, all of those things. But it's always a good idea to go there and take photos. Look at it from the lens of, okay, during the event day, where can I capture content? Sometimes we often have a host at these live events, which can be a paid kind of a spokesperson, kind of helps keep the crowd alive. Now, you can do this on your own. I am not a host, a front of house person. I like to be behind the scenes creating things, so we typically hire a host. Obviously, you know, photography was great. Thanks for sharing those photos of that great event. Videography is another one where we could amplify even more. We want to kind of figure out this messaging approach, which we'll show you here shortly, and then all of those other materials that you may need. So if you are going to do video, you may consider doing an interview guide. You know, what are we going to ask folks? How are we going to ask this? What type of response do we want to elicit? So in order to do that, you also have to develop a shot list or some storyboards. And then it's always a great idea, once you interview and talk to folks or use the photos, to get a photo release form from folks, just to now in the NIL age, even before that, get a photo release form that allows you to use their name, image, likeness. We used different words for that just a couple years ago. Now it's called NIL. All right, we'll go to the next slide. So this is a recent location scout. We're actually shooting this next week. This is for our local, I say local, our statewide film industry. So we're highlighting different people across the state and their connection to film. You know, who knew? The film industry, again, you would think they just don't do a great job of telling their own story, so they've hired us to come in and tell the story. We started uncovering all these unbelievable folks across our own state that work on major films, major all over the country, and they all live and work here in Louisiana. So this person here is a movie stuntman. He has speaking roles on Yellowstone. So we went to his farm. We started to capture photo assets. You know, okay, what are we going to do? Some storyboards. And kind of a tip that we use, kind of a pro tip, anytime you take pictures of events or locations, everybody always tries to get as much as they can in the camera. But what we do is we purposely punch in as tight as we can, meaning zoom in. When you do that, we're telling the audience, hey, this is important and this is all you need to worry about. While it's great to have bigger, broader photos, anytime you're taking photo assets for social or video, whatever it may be, get uncomfortably close to the subject. You would be surprised, because it keeps that, what I call like this point of view. You know, when I'm looking at the rope on of course I could have taken a photo of this entire arena, but seeing that rope right there in the dirt tells more of a story than this big giant arena. Or seeing his daughter sitting there, you know, climbing on the fence as we are talking with our stunt man and all these things. I see her and I go and snap a picture. So I know when we come back in video, I would love his kids to be a part of the story, because they are a part of the story. So if we go to the next slide, we also put together a framework. And again, this can be handwritten. We take each story that we're going to do across the state and we kind of brand them differently, because this individual here in Amite, Louisiana, is a Louisiana cowboy movie stuntman. We also have a woman in a small city called Natchitoches that paints and designs props for huge movies. She's also an unbelievable painter. So we're going to showcase all these different folks. We have caterers that go and source seafood right from the shrimpers, bring it to film sets for their food. But at the very bottom of what you see, the chart on the left, so we've got this video series that we're going to produce. We want to talk about the people. We want to talk about their backgrounds and their passions. the connection to film, and at the very bottom, we always say content has to do one of two things. You can't just show up to an event or a film set or whatever it may be and just turn a camera on and start shooting. You have to kind of thread that needle and tell that, what we call like the story arc. Tell, what are we trying to accomplish? So with these stories, the stories have to hit one of two buckets. It have to hit a personal impact, meaning it helped drive a local economy, gave individuals an opportunity. The film industry, that is driving these things. Or what we call beyond the screen. The film industry does a lot of workforce training. They do a lot of disaster recovery work, a lot of other things. So our stories have to hit that personal or the beyond the screen, as we're calling it, buckets. So that's kind of how we set the hierarchy, so to speak, of our story when we're going in. So we know what we're trying to capture, how we want to capture it, and the end result of the work that we are producing. And so we'll go to the next slide. And so creating all this content, great, fantastic. What do we do with it, right? And again, it's all about that content creation. So we know, and this is probably a small slice of the outreach channels that we will leverage. So we will shoot photography, video, we will get audio of Ethan and his family talking about the film industry, why it's important. And these are all the channels that we're going to hit. We're going to hit lookbooks by the district that can go to local municipalities, lawmakers in our state that say, because we have film tax credits like a lot of states. We were actually the first state in the entire country to have a film tax program. Lawmakers want to know, well, how is this impacting my district? So we've got this lookbook now where we can have stories from their district, and they can point directly to, wow, those tax credits that we approved helped these families and actually provide, tourism dollars, X amount of economic dollars. We have these kind of cheat sheets. We're looking at short form social media. Obviously, we can use all this content on the web. We can have it in video format. And we're also going to produce an email newsletter system that goes out to studios all across the country that says, hey, Louisiana is a great place to come and film. We have actors, what we call below-the-line workers, grip, lighting people, caterers, locations. We've got everything you need here in Louisiana. So again, start to think about that channel support for your event. So the event to us is great. You're going to reach, a few hundred people at one event, but what do we do after, right? Now we have a chance to amplify all this content. And if we go to the next slide, and we featured this last year. Again, wanted to, if folks are new, wanted to share it. We did an incredible Restore the Coast campaign. We did this down in New Orleans. We kind of did these intercepts, catching people in heavy trafficked areas in New Orleans at a mall in the middle part of the city and down in the French Quarter. We created these little field guides. That's why I love that passport idea that you produced for the previous event. Very similar. We had this little Louisiana guide that folks could put stickers in, keep track of different things. We'll go to the next slide. So all those materials in person. And we want to prepare, if you have a host or if you are doing intercepts or engaging with crowds, what's one thing you can ask them? So producing kind of this interview guide is always important. I'm producing one today for the film shoot tomorrow. So we can ask our cowboy, his wife, his kids, all the things that, what film means to them. And can we make it emotional? Keep in mind, we're dealing with consumers. Unfortunately, right now, we are still all human. Maybe we will be robots soon, but right now, people make decisions based on emotional connections when it comes to marketing and advertising. So if we go to the next slide, we had our host ask a few questions. So the intercept was, hey, our coastline is starting to disappear, and we want to save it, right? So draw what you would miss if the coast was gone. Or would you like to share what you would miss if the coast was gone? So we had this prep, we had cameras on, and if we go to the next slide, I believe, we'll get to the video shortly, but this was our initial concepts. Again, we just mocked these up in Photoshop. We had the idea of building this, imagine what you would miss, where our host could tear off, like you are missing a piece of the coast, and ask children, people, anyone to draw what they would miss. And we also had stickers that folks could write in what they would miss, put it on a sticker board. So we'll go to the next slide. Here are some of the behind the scenes, just showing how we had the film crews ready. We had people. There were some logistics with people helping to keep crowds at bay. We didn't have 30 people up at the board at once to allow us to punch in and get those real intimate moments. And the next slide, I believe, may be our video. So we'll go ahead and play that.
Coastline starting to disappear, and we want to save it, right? So come see. So imagine if our coastline was gone. It's all gone. So come see. Oh, it's gone. Now you come draw what you would miss. What would you miss? Come draw it for me.
So you can see a really great video. Again, we probably only reached 100 individuals, maybe a little bit more during that actual event. But taking that, producing the video, and pushing that out on social, I think within about 3 to 4 weeks, we had over 250,000 views, and it was just incredible. And again, this was a localized, kind of a regional type campaign to help support a voter initiative campaign to preserve coastal restoration dollars. So we'll go to the next slide. Here were some other shots from the other, what we call like activation, where folks, again, could write what they would miss. This one individual wrote, what would you miss? She said, my home. Really powerful stuff. So again, we punched in really close. We used a lot of these photos across social, across other materials, and just having that interactivity, like the passport, having folks stamp that is incredible. This kind of tactile experience is still gets people involved today. So the next slide. We also had a button board. Folks could go in if they participated, grab a button, take it home with them, or show their support, much like the I voted stickers. Again, unbelievable, great idea to have, right? You want kind of that takeaway, that proud moment that folks are helping the cause. All right, next slide. And then I'm going to let Erin talk a little bit about Louisiana Dairy. Erin, is that good? You can just talk about the dairy and what we've done for them recently. So.
Right. So what we just showed you was a professionally videoed and photographed event that we did. Right. So a high-end, nice event. But what we did for the Louisiana Dairy Board was we produced social media content with our iPhones. We had a couple of people who were not professionals go out there and take some of the very similar shots to what you just saw, but these are all on your iPhone. And notice that not all of the shots that we're taking are like kind of your standard group photo with a bunch of people smiling. We've got some close-ups. We've got some action shots from below. And we do have one photo by the sign, which those are always great, but we've got some variety. Do you want to go to the next slide? So I think these are our videos.
Yeah,
right?
These are the reels. Yep.
All right. So these are some reels that we made, again, just with iPhones. And these all have some movement going on, and they're just authentic. This is really what it looks like. And you guys, if you think about what you're looking at on TikTok, it's not professionally done. It's just done by normal people. And that's what we all love to watch. And so don't be afraid to pick some people on your team or go out yourself and take some video and post it on your social or use it in an email newsletter or any of your content. This is the goal that we're talking about, is all these photos and videos that you get in a 2-hour event that you can reuse all year.
Yep, here's one of them. Yep, here's another one. Yep.
So right here, we created some fun recipes and just videoed ourselves from right up above. This is a butter board. I don't know if you guys have ever made one, but they're really fun and delicious. You just have a fun butter recipe on part of it, and then put some things to dip into it on the other side.
Yep. This was shot right in the room next door, just
Yep.
on a conference room table. Again, we punched in really close. You can't really tell. Yep, we opened up some windows to get some light and turned the phone on and did these really nice little recipe videos. Yeah. So sometimes that authenticity is key. In some really high-profile campaigns, we've even gone and shot things with an old early 2000s point-and-shoot cameras, as well as old phones like an iPhone 3 and 4, to purposely make it look like it was generated by normal, everyday folks and not an agency. So it's kind of ironic. But here's another video. Yeah. And you're thinking, okay, these videos, they're okay. I mean, they're a great video, but the ones with the farmer and one of these cow videos, one got, I don't know, 23,000 views, the other 12,000 views. So people are really connecting with these, like where the food is coming from, the heart and soul, like you mentioned earlier, that goes into producing this food and not wasting it, right? So the message is there. Again, don't be afraid to start using your phone. It's an unbelievable, powerful content creator that we have today. I think, is that maybe our last?
Yeah, I would also just say one thing about the video. So if you've never done it before, I know it can seem kind of overwhelming and scary, but boosting your posts on social media is not very expensive, and sometimes it can really do a lot for you. So you can spend $50, $100 for maybe even a couple of posts that are really good ones that you've already seen people are liking. So find the ones that people obviously are liking the most, and then spend a little money and experiment and boost those, and I think that you'll really be surprised at the return on investment there.
And, you know, if you have 100 followers and you post something, you're only going to reach those 100. Actually, probably less the way the algorithms work. But boosting allows you to push past that, so you can designate zip codes or cities or a couple other segmentation, audience segmentations. And when you boost, it will go to those audiences past your current followers. So super important when you are promoting events. And then the last page is just some photo tips. Again, we will, I think the folks will pull this down into a PDF for you. Just some really quick tips on when we're in the iPhone, take the photo, hit the edit button. There's some auto features in there that really make photos look great, and how to do that and hit the ground running. So thank you all. Good to see all of you if you were on here from last year, and happy to answer any questions.
Well, thank you guys so much, and thanks everyone for being here. Please type your questions in the chat box and make sure that it says send to either all participants, goodness, I need a drink of water, or host, so that we make sure we get your questions. Let's see. I love that idea that presenting your content is still accessible when all you have is an iPhone, and that you can get some shots of cows just hanging out on the farm, because I find talking in front of a camera really uncomfortable, so that's really cool. And we heard a lot of really positive feedback, Madeline, from the passports and just how engaging they were. So great job on that. Let's see, do we have any questions, Caleb, that I've missed?
So we had one that just basically said, can you please share a link to that video? So beautiful. So, and then there was another question that says, will the recording be emailed to attendees? And the answer to that is yes. We'll put this recording on our YouTube channel and then send that link out. And then a couple of more just comments. Thank you so much for everyone for sharing. This program has been super informative and inspiring. And then there was a private question that just asked about the link for the Sustainable Spirits Brewery companies, and I sent that link out. happy to share it with the whole group if anybody else wants that, our Sustainable Spirits program. That's all I'm seeing currently. If you've got any other questions or comments, we'd love to see those and see those in the chat box. But
awesome, thank you. Let's see. Madeline, what was the most challenging thing about planning an in-person event?
I think it would have to be convincing people that it's an event worth coming to. I think that we're still in the kind of post-COVID era of people don't come to things as much as they once did. So we had to really work hard to get, you know, the raffle and the giveaway and activating all of our partners to share in their social media. Yeah, I think that's the hardest part about anyone hosting an event today is just getting people to care enough to come. But luckily we had a pretty good turnout. I think that we counted around 70-ish people throughout the day, which is pretty good, I think, for an event specifically about food waste. But yeah, definitely getting people to come and marketing, I think, is the trickiest part for me.
Thank you.
we had a question just come in that says, has the theme for Food Waste Prevention Week 2025 been announced? Just want to make sure to plan a tie-in to the larger theme.
Oops, sorry, I just muted myself. Going to be rock stars. That's what Elaine says. That's our theme. I think there's going to be a music-y kind of theme this year. We're very excited. Yes, song parodies. So get your parodies for existing songs with words relating to food, food waste, how delicious food is, ready to go.
We just had a question come in from Madeline. It says, hi, did you have a strategy for seeing how long-lasting the impacts were if people upkept good prevention practices?
Great question. I don't think that just mailing out their kind of promises that they made about food waste is probably the most effective thing, and I also don't have any data of, like, you know, if someone receives that card, whether they're more likely to continue their work in preventing food waste in their home. I don't have any of that data, but I think it was at the very least impactful and helped remind people about the event and remind them that food waste is important and we need to be working on it every day and not just during Food Waste Prevention Week. So, sorry that's not really a good answer to your question, but yes and no, I think.
Well, measuring food waste is something that many folks have been wrestling with for quite some time. So yeah, we're in good company.
It's difficult.
Yeah, and one thing we're looking at that came up in work we do in the state of Oregon around food waste is not just measuring food waste, but measuring the awareness. Now that's much easier to do, but the physical waste is more complicated. But there are some things like a post-research surveys, post-polling surveys across the state that will at least capture, hey, did you see any of our messaging? Have you taken actions to help limit food waste or lessen the food waste? Is this still a concern for you? You know, all those things that polling folks will ask. So that is in discussion now. We've done this with other campaigns and come back, but it does take a little bit of budget to do that post-survey for any of your DMAs or designated market areas that you are marketing in. But those are generally effective in determining if your message has been absorbed. So.
Elaine put some information here saying the first partner info session to prep for 2025 will be January 9th, so stay tuned for more information on that. Brad, I had one question for you. Just personally, the work that we do and all of our programming, We do quite a bit of in-person events, whether it be having a booth at a conference or working a festival. And I think that too often we're so focused on making sure the event goes well, everybody's where they need to be, and things running smoothly, that personally I will forget or just not plan properly enough to get the good content to be able to have things to post throughout the year. Do you have advice on how I can be better at that, or how I can get my team sort of ready and set to capture that content, or just a better way of thinking?
Yeah, absolutely. If you start with a shot list beforehand and say we know we need photos of, let's say, people getting their passport stamped or people at the booth asking questions. We know we need these key assets. That'll help you throughout the day, so you can start checking those off. And oh yeah, look, I need to grab. Okay, the next person that walks up, let me grab a photo. A lot of times it is very difficult. If I'm at an event, we will also hire a freelance photographer. You can get them very cheap, and may come spend the whole day with you for just a couple $100. That has been very effective in canvassing. Now, what they're going to do, if you can't have a shot list, then you have to do what's called, basically I call it bracketing. You have to shoot, hundreds and hundreds of photos just to get your top 10 or 15. But that's what a freelance photographer or someone else, if you could get a team member that's just there to capture content for the day, that's always incredible. Like you said, you're not going to use every photo, but just shoot as much and canvas as much content as you can.
I would add something to, all right, so if you think about what we're all doing here is we're trying to affect behavior change.
Right.
Around the world, in our country, in our state, with our organization, whatever size our organization is, you really have to think about it as something we do know about behavior change is that we have to be presented with the information or with the suggestion for the behavior change many, many, many times.
That's right.
And also by people that we respect, that are people whose opinion that we respect. And so your social media content has a lot of potential to get lots of impressions of food waste being important out there to people. And so it is very valuable to say, hey, your job at this conference, you're coming just to take pictures and video. That's your one job. You're not, all you have to do is that. And so that's a way maybe to tweak your thinking to what is valuable about getting pictures and video. It's not just a nice thing to do. It's mining the gold in your presence at that event. The people at the event are already gonna maybe be predisposed to listen to you or be environmentally minded. Mm-hmm. But all the people out there on social media, the more and more that they see all these different people talking about food waste, that's where they're gonna start to be softened up to the behavior change.
They're going to feel like, oh, wait, I'm missing out on something. What's happening? Yeah.
Right. Everyone's talking about it.
Yeah, they want to be a part of something for sure. So.
Right. Yeah. So hopefully that's helpful. That's how I think about it, at least.
Definitely. I appreciate that. We had another question come in that says, we have a smaller outreach team and limited budget. Any specific types of events / components of events that the panelists feel offer the most impact in a simple format?
That's a great question. Events or components. Look, we love small events. We do small events all the time. Being able to, like we said before, capture all that content and keep using it for like this more durable, like Erin mentioned, more durable behavior change over time. I love panels. We've done some small events in the Northwest where we invited, just like like Madeline presented, having these other organizations, but perhaps doing a Q&A where you put them up on a panel, put 4 or 5 people up there, let the crowd or the audience start asking, have a moment in time where you're going to have this panel and folks just give their little 3-minute to 5-minute intro on what they do, why it's important, and then start taking questions. Those paneling type things are, all you need is a table, some audio set up, and then you're good to go. Generally, the folks you're going to invite will do it for free. And again, those are really great ways to engage the crowd at a low-cost, high-impact type approach. So any panelist or speaking or special speaker to speak on one subject matter expert is fantastic. So,
yeah, and Elaine added, I think, partner with other local nonprofits or organizations that are engaged in the week. So just basically leaning on, leaning on other organizations or nonprofits that are, very similar missions to you. And then just
I was going to say, ask for their contacts as well. So a lot of them have media contacts, reporters, anything you can do, direct email to reporters, to the newsrooms, pick up the phone, call them. It's an extra step. I know it's a lot of grinding type work, but the more you can invite those folks out, you can go from a small event where one major TV, the biggest TV network or reporter in your area will cover it, and you're going to reach, hundreds of thousands of folks. So ask if you could use their media list, ask the event venue if they have a media list or a PR list, and email and call those folks. Yep.
All right, there was just one last little comment, basically thank you all very much. Very informative and motivational in moving forward and planning. Everyone have a great rest of the day. So I think that does it for our questions. Really appreciate everybody joining in. And Joelle, if you want to sign us off, we'll be good to go.
Yeah, everybody, thank you so much to our panelists for joining us today and the time you put in to present for us. Thank you for everybody for coming. Register as a partner. Think about planning your own event and join us for Food Waste Prevention Week 2025. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.